Hello, everybody, and welcome to the June 10th segment of Trips and Traps. I'm Andy Serling, joined by Eric Donovan.
Good to be back in action this week here on Trips and Traps. Took last week off to prepare for the Belmont Stakes. We had the draw show and everything that Wednesday, so a little tough last week, but we certainly had enough good races to make up for it.
Yeah, we did, and we're going to show most of the races we're going to show are from Saturday. We're going to start out actually with 3 turf races. We're going to show one race that was before Saturday. It was actually last Wednesday. And then we're going to show 3 dirt stakes from Saturday. And, of course, we're going to want to talk about how the track was playing on the dirt on Saturday, because that is a big hot topic. A lot of people felt the rail was very strong. A little bit on the fence, but we'll get to that. But let's start on the turf and start with a race from June 3rd.
We're taking a look at the number 6 horse in here, BLITZEN 2, who actually went off the 2-1 favorite in this race. And most of BLITZEN 2's trouble is not going to come until they reach the far turn. But we can talk a little bit about how the race is unfolding here. And once again, this race, a mile and a 16th on the inner turf course. So we have that turn coming up very quickly as they make that kind of that dog leg onto the backstretch here, and that affects the way the pace unfolds.
Right. I mean, the first thing is, and we've discussed this, but we'll keep discussing it, when you see mile and a 16th races on the inner turf, take over a second off the first quarter. Because of the way the races are run, there probably isn't a lot of a run up to it. They're sort of running uphill. They take a sharp turn to the backstretch, and here's BLITZEN 2. So these races, the paces look slower than they are. Now, this was a slow pace, but the other thing about showing these races, and especially these mile and a 16th and mile and an 8th inner turf races, dynamics are the whole story in turf races in general, which is one of the reasons we like them, but it's not so much horses that get in obvious trouble, it's horses that have dynamics against them. And here was a race where the winner was able to get out in a loose lead, and BLITZEN 2, who might be the best horse, and certainly on her best races is the best horse, but Solo Piano an advantage, and BLITZEN 2, no shot at all.
Huge tactical advantage. Solo Piano's on the lead here. Jockey Ramon Dominguez is slowing her down on the front end. The half was in 51 seconds flat. And BLITZEN 2 is toward the back of the pack, about 5 lengths from the front, has to deal with some traffic troubles in front of her and around her. Meanwhile, the winner of the race, Solo Piano, just going nice and easy on the front end.
Absolutely. Now, it is interesting to me that BLITZEN 2, who we'll highlight again here, it's number 6 in the yellow, orange-yellow, she is about 5th here in the race. The horse who runs 3rd, actually, is our old friend Bellatrice. She saves ground on the rail the whole way. Now, she's hurt by the slow pace also, but she ends up following the horse who's behind. Sort of the 1, 2, 3 finishers, they basically had the inside position the whole way. And BLITZEN 2 is just hampered behind horses.
Stuck in a little bit of traffic there. The jock tries to get her outside. It looked like couldn't go in that route as another horse comes to her outside. So just a tough trip there for BLITZEN 2. And like as we said, Solo Piano enjoys all that ground-saving trip on the front end and being able to expend energy however she likes with that easy trip there. Meanwhile, BLITZEN 2 has to deal with the other horses in the race and didn't work out too well for BLITZEN 2.
Right, she never gets a fair chance to run. Now, it was her first start off the layoff. We don't know that she can still run because she never had a chance to run. We're assuming she's probably going to be okay, and obviously her form speaks for itself before this race. We'll see. Maybe she'll show up in a New York bred stakes race for fillies and mares coming up in the next few weeks. Don't know. But one of the things this race showed to me is in watching these races, and you see the results of them, it's important to look at where were the horses that were near the front at the end, and did they have similar kinds of trips, and figure out the horses that had those trips and lower them, and the horses who didn't, and raise up their chances next time.
Well, in that case, the horses did all pretty much save ground in that race that we just showed. We're going to show you another race. It kind of has a similar look to it. It's the 4th race from Belmont Stakes Day. The number 2 horse, Expansion, the favorite in this race here, 2-1 for Kieran McLaughlin and Alan Garcia. But the race unfolds strikingly similar to the one on June 3rd that we just showed you.
Yeah, this is an obvious one. To be fair. Now, here's Expansion, the 2 horse, breaking on top. Not a speed horse, but breaking on top. And the key to this race, and once again we're on the inner, is maintaining position. Pennington gets off after running 2 terrible races in his return races. He gets off, sets a pretty slow pace, though it's hard to judge the pace. It's the inner. We had the rain, first turf race. Of course, on the outside, Radical Sabbatical, who was the other speed in the race, I thought he would have been closer, to be honest. I was surprised he was sort of throttled back as much as he was. And Expansion's in a good spot here.
Expansion's in a great spot here. You would kind of, I guess if you're betting on Expansion in this spot, maybe you'd wish you would be where the 9 was in this race, BB Livermore right there, just to keep him close, a close eye on the 7 Pennington. But Expansion here, if they're breaking on the front, back about 3 lengths now in the middle of the pack. But still, if he can get through and get some luck and gets through on the inside, he's going to have a perfect trip here.
Yeah, I would say, as you'll see shortly, if Expansion had maintained this position, he would have won this race. Now, a horse goes up inside of him, so he's already lost his spot on the rail. Now, I don't mind that because sometimes you jam horses in on the rail and they get themselves into trouble. So staying in the two-path is okay. It's a little easier to get out. You have yourself some more options. But as you're going to see very shortly when we come into the stretch, Expansion doesn't hold his position.
Shuffled back badly here. Now goes from fourth position to seventh in a blink of an eye, and almost goes all the way back to last. Maybe right here he even isn't last, but now he's all the way back there. Has to come through on the rail, which is never an easy thing to do. If you've seen the show, we talk about horses trying to rally up the rail. Most of them don't like to do it. Well, there's some traffic in front of Expansion here. You've got to go the inside route, but Expansion rallies very well here with a clean trip. My gosh, Expansion wins this race probably by a couple lengths.
For fun, no question about it. And also, just remembering the dynamics. You've got the speed winning the race. A horse who was sitting third finishes third in here, so the speed never came back, and Expansion just ran in a different race in these. It's an obvious horse, but we thought we'd point it out. One more race, we'll go right to the next race, and this is going to be on the Widener course, and this is the fifth race, actually, from Saturday.
A little bit different kind of race here. Big field assembled for this one. We're looking at the 13 Hanging by a Thread. Another horse that went off the favorite in this race, drawing in off the also eligible as Hanging by a Thread. Had a big starter allowance win last time out. Breaking toward the outside, you see Hanging by a Thread kind of in last year, but it's going to move up to mid-pack. Andy and I were discussing this before. You're going to see what happens with Hanging by a Thread in the stretch. We really don't know what to make of it. We just don't know if the horse was in trouble or if it just wasn't his best day today. But a tricky kind of read here for Hanging by a Thread. And I'd imagine a lot of people are going to be looking at this horse trying to determine whether this was a trouble trip or not.
Right, and this was a 5-2 favorite in a competitive race. A horse coming off a very big race in his race before that. And you watch it for yourselves. We're not trying to be clever here. It's a difficult one to figure out. Now, this, of course, we're on the Widener, and this race has a completely different dynamic than the one before. You see a horse that we actually talked about on the show. I think the last time we did a show, Le Grand Cru was actually on the lead in this race. Well, the pace wasn't the place to be, as you sort of ultimately see. I didn't think he ran that badly, actually, all things considered, finishing about fifth. But the winner, Seti Mezzo, was the second choice. That's him sitting about sixth right behind horses here. In front of him, between horses, Hanging by a Thread. And, of course, the eventual second-place finisher is in last, number 4. The third-place finisher is on the inside, moving up behind the 10. But, of course, Hanging by a Thread, who's sitting in what seems to be a good trip here, but doesn't seem to ever be clear enough to make a clean run. But right here, he's perfectly clear.
Looks like Jockey Abarco is asking him a little bit here, but he just doesn't have quite that turn of foot. Still, you'd like to see him try to angle him out, I guess, into about the four-path, I guess it would be, to just get a clear run through the stretch here. But, it just looks like he has a hard time getting going here, and then before you know it, Seti Mezzo, the winner of the race, is right up alongside, and now Hanging by a Thread just can't get out and is kind of stuck in behind horses there, and, the jock doesn't know what to do at this point, it doesn't seem like.
Right, that's a classic blind switch there, but if he had the momentum before it, he would have burst through it, and now you can see that he can't even really ride him. I saw him turn his head in the stretch. I don't know if there's a story with him. It is sort of odd because it felt like he had the room or not. Not really sure what happened there to Hang by a Thread, and we'll see when he comes back. But this is sort of a tough one to make a true determination because we don't know what happened, and you do see this in trips sometimes. But this was a race where at least this was a more fairly run race. He had a good trip. He just didn't run. That does it for the first segment, though.
Yeah, we saw the huge difference between the inner turf races and the Widener turf races, for sure. That does it for the first segment, as Andy was alluding to. Keep in mind, you can send your comments to us at tripsandtraps@NYRAinc.com.
Yep, and that'll do it for this segment, but thanks for watching.
And come on back and watch the second segment.